Hi, folks, it's Chuck Lavazzi. Welcome to this edition of Chuck's Culture Channel on YouTube. And this time, as you can see, I am in front of the Act 2, Scene 1 ballroom scene of Eugene Onegin by Tchaikovsky. That is the first of the three operas at Union Avenue Opera this season. It just concluded about a week ago as I am recording this. And I'm going to be talking with Scott Schoonover, who is the founder, artistic director, and music director of Union Avenue Opera, about the other two operas in this season and also what he has planned for the 2023 season. But before we get to that, how about a little video clip? Here is the final couple of minutes from the Act 2, Scene 1 ballroom scene. This is in the original Russian, of course, so I'll just tell you what happens. Onegin and his friend Lenski have gotten into an absurd argument over basically a triviality. This leads to a physical conflict, which leads to a challenge to a duel, which proves to be disastrous for both of them. But here is the scene. Okay, well, there you are, a little look at Union Avenue Opera in that video. And with me right now is Scott Schoonover, who's the artistic director and the music director at Union Avenue Opera. So he's the man, and he's also frequently the man at the podium. So Scott, welcome to Chuck's Culture Channel on YouTube.
Thank you so much. I'll correct you really quickly. I'm not the man at the podium for the middle show usually.
Okay.
So I do two out of the three each year, but I wish I could do all three, but the way the schedule happens, it's not possible for me to do them all. But that's okay. We have great guest conductors who come in and take that second spot. So.
Okay, so we'll talk about that in a minute. We're midway through the season right now. Eugene Onegin, which was the first opera which you did conduct, is
Yes.
Is behind me right now. That's the waltz scene, I do believe, from
Yes,
Eugene.
it is. Yep. Mm-hmm.
And the rest of the season, because there are three operas in each season, coming up. Well, we're recording this on July the 25th, so coming up this Friday, we have the opening of Verdi's great masterpiece, probably one of the greatest operas of the 19th century, Falstaff. And then after that, later in August, let me look at the date here on my other screen, we have Sondheims, A Little Night Music,
That's
August
right.
19th through 27th.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So let's talk a little about those. Falstaff, first of all, as I said, this is generally considered by a lot of people, including me, if not the greatest opera Verdi ever wrote, certainly one of the greatest, certainly his only real comedy. And really the pinnacle of his career, which he wrote when he was 80 years old, which is pretty astonishing.
Yes. Yeah, it's if you know Verdi opera and you come to see Falstaff, you'll get a very different sense. It's not a piece that is we have an aria and we stop and clap, and then you have a chorus or a trio, and it's not these set pieces that we call them, but in fact it's a through composed piece,
Yes.
looking forward to composers more like Puccini, like more contemporary 20th century composers. He was trying a new style very intentionally. It was the last opera he ever wrote, and like you said, I think there is, it is his real only comedy. I mean, and it is hilarious. It embodies different parts of Shakespeare, Merry Wives of Windsor, and Henry. There's a few shows that he steals from. Boito made the libretto. He kind of combines this all into this great story of Falstaff, Sir John Falstaff, and the rake who is trying to capture all these women and have his way with them, but in the end gets taken advantage of himself. So, but it definitely is a different style and so fun to listen to. And there's always something changing. It continually evolves through the whole piece. There's not a moment to get bored in it. They're just not. It's a romp, and once it starts, it just runs and runs and runs and runs and runs.
Yes, it goes at a really fast pace.
Yeah, it really does.
The pace of speech, really, which is what Verdi had in mind.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
And of course, as you mentioned, he had the services of one of the great librettists of the 19th century, as well, Arrigo Boito, who was also no slacker as a composer.
No, yeah. His
Yeah,
Mephistopheles is one of my very favorite. There's so much gorgeous music in that piece. Yeah.
oh
But
yeah,
he also, yeah, was librettist for many of Verdi's operas and also other people too. But definitely an important character of that particular time period. So yes.
I think this must be a challenge musically because of the rapid pacing and the way that vocal lines overlap so often, and of course some of the
Yes.
complex musical structures. This is, as far as I know, the only comic opera that ends in a big fugue, which is a bit unusual. So, what kind of
Yes.
challenges did you face putting this together? Because this is not an easy score to do, I don't think.
The only thing that I did musically was to prepare the chorus ahead of time because they are local people and we do our chorus rehearsals ahead of time. But I will tell you that having been watching rehearsals and being part of the audience and giving my feedback, of course, it really does, like you said, it's super complicated to put together. Not only are people talking at the same time, but people are in different time signatures. People are doing all sorts of things. The women are doing one thing while the men are doing the other. It's very, very fast. Like you mentioned, it's super difficult for the singers to get everything out. But we have a wonderful cast that's doing a great job. I watched the Sitzprobe last night, which is that orchestra rehearsal, the first orchestra rehearsal with the singers. And it was so entertaining and fun to watch and listen to, because everybody's doing a wonderful job that's involved in it. And it's a great cast full of people who we've seen on our stage before mostly, and a few new people as well, but a lot of audience favorites. I think people will really love seeing the show.
Uh, and we should not neglect this. Who is conducting this one?
Stephen Hargraves is
Okay.
conducting this. Stephen has he's done many shows for us over the past several years, including last year he did The Barber of Seville and Big Top. But he's been involved for many years over the year. And John Truitt is directing the show.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's a really interesting concept that I think people will really enjoy seeing. It's something very different than they've ever seen here on stage. There's, well, I don't want to give too much away, but I promise you that from a technical standpoint, people will be surprised at what they're seeing happen. Probably didn't think that we were capable of doing what we're doing in this particular space. So it's a really interesting way that they're doing it. I can't wait to see it all put together.
Yeah. Your reference to Barbieri from last season reminds me, of course, that last season, because of the pandemic, you guys were obliged to work outdoors at the
Yes,
Big
yes,
Shopping
yeah,
Center. And
yeah.
so this brings you back to your original home for the first time in 2 years.
Yes, it's really great to be there. It's great to be in a place that's temperature controlled. It was
Yes.
it was great to be at the Big Top. I have to be honest. It was really cool to be doing opera again after all those years, after the whole year of being completely away from it. But it's a much better experience, not only for us and the audience, but in terms of what we can do.
Mhm.
technically with musical theater, but also acoustics with the orchestra. And it's really nice to be back. It's a great place to be. And having been away for 2 years, we certainly appreciate it more now that we're back in it. So.
For people or those who are not familiar with Union Avenue space, it is not, well, it was not originally a theater. It is a church, Union Avenue Christian Church, which has been repurposed and gradually improved and expanded on over the years to be an actual theatrical space.
Yes,
And
it is. Yeah, it's also continued to be a church, I will say,
yes,
even while not while we're doing operas, but it is still an active congregation. And in fact, I'm the music director of the church, and have been for 28 years. But yeah, the church moves into another space during the summer, and we start building in there. But yeah, we in 2007 did a major renovation to the space. The opera company did, expanding the stage by about 50% and digging an
mhm,
orchestra pit, putting in new theater seating, all sorts of things to make it work. So yeah, it's been a real interesting journey for the space and for our relationship with the church. And of course, we're separate organizations completely, and we always have been. But it's a great relationship.
yeah. We're glad to see you back indoors.
Yep.
So after you Falstaff, the next production is one that will be familiar to a lot of people who aren't opera fans. Stephen Sondheim's A Little Night Music.
Yes,
Uh,
absolutely.
what made you decide to do that? Because that's not generally considered an opera, although opera theater has done it.
Well, it's done quite often by opera companies, but you're right. I mean, it's not traditionally considered an opera, and I would
Hmm.
say that we don't only do operas. I mean, we've kind of over the last many years have been sort of expanding our tradition of also including, golden age Broadway things. Certainly, Sondheim is in golden age, but things that require legitimate singing, legitimate meaning, without microphones.
Right.
It's not to say that singing with microphones is illegitimate. It's not what I'm trying to say at all, but that's just the technical word for it. But things that will work unamplified in our space and that require opera singers, or people who, or that can be done with people who can do both, who are versatile. Like, for example, Debbie Lennon, who is a wonderful musical
Yes.
theater star who people will know from a million different things. She also is a wonderful opera singer. This is something that's kind of right up her alley, and she'll be playing our Desiree. I guess we call those people crossover, that can do both, and do them both well. Yeah, like I said, it's a show that has been done a lot, and I've been wanting to do Sondheim for a really long time. And to me, this seemed like the obvious first foray into that. And, it's interesting because when we chose to do this and got the rights and everything, we actually signed the contract to do this about a week before Stephen Sondheim died. And
Oh,
I'm so pleased that we're doing it now. I mean, it's just interesting that happened. And then it's, in our planning, obviously very sad that he died. But I'm also glad that we're able to do sort of a little tribute that we didn't know we were going to be doing when we first planned to do it. So yeah, that's an interesting part of this for sure.
yeah. Yeah. In fact, of course, now that I think of it, Union Avenue has done more than one show that traditionally isn't considered opera. You did Carousel, didn't you? Just am I
We did
right?
Carousel with Ken Page directed it for us, and that was a
Hmm?
wonderful production. And we Lost in the Stars is
Yeah, which I was
sometimes
in
considered opera.
fact.
Yes, I know you were.
That
What
was a great
else?
show.
Porgy and Bess we've done, which
Right. In
there
2007. Yeah.
certainly is done by opera houses. Um, yeah, there's been a few. There have been a few shows, and I'm sure we'll talk about next year. Also, we're planning on another big musical theater piece. But
Yes.
it's these days it's something that's worked its way into regular programming of opera houses, and it's something that I really have all my life enjoyed as well as opera, and something that our audiences clearly like. And it gives us an opportunity to reach out to other audience members who maybe wouldn't go to see an opera, but will come to see
Mhm.
something that's a crossover like this. And it's worked really well for us. And I foresee us continuing to do that, continuing to include those pieces, maybe not every year, but, often.
Yeah.
I'm really enjoying this, as we get into the, um, this is our 28th season. We didn't do anything like that for the first probably 15 years or something. So we have to keep growing and expanding and doing different things, and I'm excited that we're doing this. So
Yeah. Well, this is the thing about Union Avenue. You have done a really wide variety of repertoire over the years. You've
yeah,
done new works, you've done old classics. I know you guys
yeah,
did one of the best La Traviatas I've ever seen, frankly. Uh,
thank you.
uh, so you've really had a wide range of material that you've performed, and I think that's impressive, especially for a company that had to start out, had rather modest beginnings. I mean, you really expanded since those early days, but
Yeah,
I think
the thing that we throw into that mix, we did the Wagner ring cycle.
yes, yes,
Which for
the reduction, yeah. Yeah, we talk about that briefly because I don't think many people know that Jonathan Dove, the composer, did a reduced Wagner ring cycle in which none of the operas run longer than around, what, 2.5, maybe 3 hours
yeah,
max.
that was what it was. It's under
Uh,
3 hours. They're all under 3 hours. Yeah,
and they were aimed at smaller companies that didn't have the facilities that Bayreuth does, which is which is
exactly. Exactly.
the vast majority of perhaps of opera companies in the world. So yeah,
Yeah,
that was an admirable thing you guys did, and you had
thank
some
you.
really spectacular Alexandra LaBianco in that, which
Yeah.
was a real
You,
coup.
yeah, what's really cool is that from that group of singers, so Siegfried and Albrecht were Clay Hilly and Jordan Shanahan,
Mhm.
and they both just did those roles at Deutsche Oper this past year as the leads in those roles. And also Alexander Lobianko is going to be doing Brunhilde in the Ring Cycle in Seattle Opera coming
Oh,
up. That's an upcoming thing. So it's really neat that we got these people when they were young Wagnerians just starting out, gave them a chance to sort of get their feet wet with it. And they're really taken off in those fields. I mean, all three of those people, and several others too, by the way, are doing lots of things, but those three in particular are Wagnerians. And that's, I mean, Alexander does all sorts of repertoire besides that, but
yeah,
um, these guys are, they're doing it out there. It's pretty exciting.
yeah,
It's pretty cool. They were in the same cast at Deutsche Oper. They were in the same cast. So, it's funny because they
oh
did it
wow.
together at Union Avenue, and then they meet back up in Germany all these years later. But it's fun to like catch those people when they're on their way up and get to know them. So
Yeah, so Union Avenue has an illustrious past and looks like a fascinating future. Let's talk about in a minute here. I want to talk about next season, but first, I really want to touch on something else that I think you guys deserve a lot of praise for because we are, as anybody who's been paying attention knows, kind of at the crest of the BA.5 wave of Omicron right now, coronavirus, and your company is one of
yeah,
a relatively small number that is really insisting on universal masking for the staff and the audience. And I want to tell you that I think that's admirable because not enough venues are doing that, in my view.
thank you. It's been a hard decision, I'll say, in the sense that we have a lot of people who don't like that, but it's really going around right now. I mean, I'm not someone who likes masking, let me tell you. I hate it, but it's something that we have to do for our protection, unfortunately.
Hmm.
And we as you know, or maybe you don't know, we did have COVID move into the cast of Eugene Onegin. In the second weekend, particularly, we had 5 chorus people.
Oh
Um,
my.
so the singers are not masked when they're singing on stage. They're masked when they're off stage, but the singers are not. Just to throw that out there, so people
Yeah.
are aware of that and don't think that they would be singing behind masks, because I don't think it would be. You really can't do the storytelling that you need to do behind masks. It'd be very difficult to
Yeah.
show any sort of emotion. Or at any rate, yeah, we did have that happen. We were able to adjust and keep going, and thank God none of the principals got sick. Um, but we kind of kept everyone separate, and that it did work out in the end. We were able to put the shows on, but we're just trying to keep people safe and trying to keep our artists safe too, by the way.
Hmm.
That's the other thing, and our staff, so that we are able to continue to do this. So it's for everyone's protection, and I think it's universally dreaded and hated, but what can you do? I mean, it's an unfortunate necessity of our lives right now. Yeah,
Good on you for doing that.
thank you so much.
So Yeah, you're welcome. So next season, let's talk about next season a bit. You've got quite a remarkable season coming up there. Now, I should point out, I haven't mentioned this before, that Union Avenue has a three-show season in July and August of each year, which normally is a fallow season for opera. So it's great to have you guys there. So what are you doing next year for 2023?
So next year, 2023 is going to be, yeah, an interesting year. We're starting out with Benjamin Britten's Turn of the Screw, which is, these days there's a lot of emphasis uh, in streaming series and things like that on horror genre,
Hmm.
and it's something that I personally I really like as well. And it's a piece that I've been wanting to do. We actually did it for Halloween. We did it on Halloween, which was a really fun thing to do. I was set in orchestra, and also Christine Brewer is going to be joining the cast as Mrs.
Ah,
Gross. There's two female leads, and she's the housekeeper that's there with them and knows everything that's going on in the show. So it'll be wonderful to have her back on our stage again too. And yeah, it's a wonderful story. It's super creepy. There's ghosts and there's all sorts of suggested atrocities going on in the house. And
yeah.
yeah, so it's a really spooky and scary, and I think people really love that. And then we moved to something completely different, big Italian piece, Don Pasquale, Donizetti, which we've never done. We've never gotten to around to Don Pasquale before, but it's a super hilarious farce. I've had the opportunity to conduct it before at another company, and I really loved working on that piece. And it's got wonderful characters and caricatures of people, I would say too. If you've seen Elixir of Love, it's kind of in the same vein as that in
Hmm.
terms of comedy and scope and cast and things like that. And then we're going to end our season with the musical Ragtime, which is something that we've been talking about doing around here for many years. It's a big piece
Oh yeah.
with several different groups, several different choruses. Yeah, as you know, you mentioned you were in it before. But we are really looking forward to that and trying to see what we can do with that in our space and make that wonderful story come to life. So yeah, that's our season for next year. That's what we're planning it, and we already have the rights to all that stuff. So I think it's
Great.
a for sure thing, assuming we're still around, assuming we're still able to do opera next year. Yeah,
Yeah, that's true. Well, certainly, the company seems to be healthy artistically and financially, but yeah, we never know what's going to happen with this damn pandemic,
yeah,
do
for
we?
sure. Yeah, yeah,
So I just want to remind everybody that all the information we've talked about here in this interview, you can find right down here in the show description at YouTube. There'll be clickable links, so you don't have to be taking notes while you're listening to this. Once again, Scott Schoonover. I've been talking to Scott Schoonover, artistic director and musical director at Union Avenue Opera, St. Louis's other major opera company. And guys, really, congratulations on all the fine work you've been doing over the years. I've been enjoying going to Union Avenue for many years now, and I hope to keep doing it for a while yet. Um, Check out the show, everybody. Go to the links, buy tickets to the next two shows that are coming up, and get out and enjoy opera. You can really, if you've not been to the opera before, you should really go and be aware that Union Avenue does their shows all in the original language. So Falstaff will be in Italian. Uh, a little night music will be in English. And they
yeah.
have projected English text for all the operas. So if you don't understand Italian, it won't matter. You'll be able to follow the story. Scott, is there anything else that we need to touch on before we say goodbye?
No, I think that's it. But I thank you so much for having me on and for plugging us in such a nice way. That's wonderful and such kind words. I really appreciate that. And I do think Chuck is correct here that if you haven't ever seen an opera, Falstaff is one that would be a great opportunity for
Yes.
any person to come and see and really get a kick out of. And while the words will be flying, you will be able to read the text over on the site. We've actually done a good job, I think, of sort of condensing. So there's not so much to read, but condensing into the essence of what exactly is being said in this particular case. Often we do it word for word for word, but since there's 8 people sometimes saying different things at the same time,
Hmm.
that's not quite possible in this particular case. So we've, I think, come up with a good solution of how to, you know, communicate what's being offered on the stage. So, and you know, it's interesting because even if we were singing that in English, you wouldn't understand what they're saying
No.
because 8 people have 8 different texts going. So this is your only chance of getting to know exactly what's being said, which is
Mhm.
kind of cool.
Well, I'm pretty sure Boito and
So
Verity knew that that would be the case for their original audience as well.
yeah, for
But
sure they did. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, and you don't have to understand every single word. You know what's going on. It's a comedy. It's fast paced, and we talked a little bit about some of the musical complexities underneath it. But you really don't have to know what those are to enjoy it, I think.
No, not at all. Not at all. Not at all. Yeah. In
Okay.
fact, it doesn't matter at all. Yeah, it's you'll know what's going on. I mean, there's really great actors that are you'll know even if you're not watching what's going on. Like I said last night, I watched the Sitzprobe, and I don't know every single word that's being said, but I knew just from the what's going on in their faces what was happening and going on. So yeah, there's that, and then of course Little Night Music, which is going to be a wonderful production, I think, too. A lot of great local talent, and our Teresa Doggett, who's our wonderful
Yes.
costumer, is coming on board as Madame Armfelt, and can't wait to do that with her. We've been talking about trying to get her on stage for years, so I'm excited that's happening. And Anna Maria Pileggi, directing, who does a lot of theater around town and at WashU, is coming back to join us again for this season. So yeah, no, I'm excited about the next couple shows, and like I said, hopefully we can sell a lot of tickets and make it successful all the way around.
Okay. Well, once again, we've been talking with Scott Schoonover from Union Avenue Opera for Chuck's Culture Channel on YouTube. This is Chuck Lavazzi saying, get out, go to the theater, enjoy an opera. See you next time. Okay, that does it for this edition of Chuck's Culture Channel. I'm your host, Chuck Lavazzi, the Senior Performing Arts Critic at 88.1 KDHX here in St. Louis. Please check out the other videos on my Chuck's Culture Channel here on YouTube and spread the word to all your friends who want to know about what's going on in the performing arts in St. Louis and beyond. Go out, see a play, see an opera, go to a cabaret, but whatever. Support the performing arts both here in St. Louis and in your town. See you next time.